Hey posture guys and gals, I'm Justin Archer, your friendly neighborhood posture guy, and today we're going to be talking about how you should be standing throughout the day. And it really amazes me that we're able to get this far, a year plus, without talking about that. And I know sure we've talked about, what proper postural alignment looks like and feels like, and basically the goal that we're all trying to get to, that ideal blueprint with your feet and knees pointed straight ahead, no rotation in your hips or torso, your shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles all vertically stacked. I know we've gone over that, time and time again, but I've been asked frequently, especially the last few weeks from a couple clients, how should I be standing? How should I think about standing, throughout my day? So I thought it'd be a good video to do. And, I would say first and foremost is, let's start down at the feet, okay? So step number one is making sure your feet are on the ground. And you might go, well, duh, like where else would they be? I'm standing. Well, what I mean by that is making sure that your heel and the ball of your foot or the toes are on an even playing field. So get out of your heels. And I'm not just talking to ladies, I'm talking to guys as well, because I'm not just talking about high heels and stilettos and those kind of things. I'm talking about a lot of the athletic shoes and dress shoes that men wear, where the heel is significantly higher than the toe. Now, the problem with that and high heels is that they're going to shorten your heel cord and basically the whole posterior chain. And that's going to cause your body to compensate. It may cause you to flex at the knee. It may cause you to anteriorly shift your hips forward or go into an anterior pelvic tilt, which will then change the curvature of your entire spine. And these could lead to all types of various symptoms, which I know you would like to avoid, and me too. So again, get a more minimalistic shoe. They don't have to be the 5 fingers, the toe shoes you've seen me wear or other people wear. I know not everybody can wear those types of shoes at work anyways, but I'm going to put a link down below to birthdayshoes.com. There's a wide selection and reviews of tons of different types of minimalistic shoes, some of which are dress shoes that you can wear in an office and just throughout your normal day-to-day life. Some are athletic shoes, but whatever you wear, try to get into a minimalistic footwear shoe, and that will help tremendously, okay? So that's number one. Number two, and also before I go on to number two, let me say, be barefoot as much as you can. That's best case scenario, but I know that we go outside and we go to work where it's not socially acceptable in most workplaces to just go barefoot. So I understand if you have to wear shoes. I always tell people the less shoe you can wear, the better, all right? So that being said, on to number two, which is you want to make sure your feet are about 6 inches, your knees and feet about 6 inches apart, so usually about fist width with a thumb on the outside, so about there, okay? And make sure your feet and your knees are pointed straight ahead. You don't want your feet turned out like this, or one turned in and the other turned out, or something like that, okay? You want your knees and feet pointed straight ahead. Once you got that down, you want to make sure your hips are underneath you. Now, what I mean by underneath you is, if you look at yourself from the side, and I look at a lot of people from a profile perspective when I'm looking at their posture, and there's this growing trend of people when they stand, oh, there goes Bob the cat, hi Bob. When they stand, their hips are anteriorly shifted forward. So the center of their body is shifted forward. Now you think of someone who comes to me with lower back pain and says, my lower back hurts, what's going on here? Well, obviously you can see their spine is being crumpled up like an accordion closing, and all this pressure is back here. So get those hips underneath you, and that's going to relieve a lot of the pressure. Now, don't confuse anterior shift with an anterior pelvic tilt. They're two different things, and we're going to get to the anterior pelvic tilt in just a little. But right now, if your hips are out in front of you, like so, just pull them back underneath of you, okay? And if you have trouble doing this, you notice your muscles don't kind of want to hold that there, I got a few posts, which I'll link to down below, that can help you with that, correct that postural deviation, all right? So once your hips are underneath of you, what you want to do is, one, if you have that lordotic curve in your lower back, that anterior pelvic tilt, this will help as well, is I want you to lightly squeeze your glutes. Now, I don't want you to tilt. You're not trying to go into a posterior tilt like this, but just squeeze enough so that if you imagine your feet on plates or like they were screws, I want you to screw them into the ground, okay? And you're going to feel this traction, especially if you're barefoot, I'm on hardwood floor, this traction from your foot on the ground. Like I said, I'm trying to screw out. And you can even see, or I think you can see there on the video, hopefully I'm back far enough, you can see when I do that, I have a significantly more arch in my foot. So this is a way that if, like myself, in the past you notice like if you've lost some arch in your foot, this is a way to get it back. So squeeze your glutes. Another way to think of it is almost like you're trying to spread your legs laterally on the ground, obviously though they're not moving, but screw your feet into the ground, and that'll tighten your glutes just enough to put you in a neutral pelvic position, as well as stabilize your hips, because your hips are most stable in flexion and external rotation, and extension and internal rotation. So this is just making you more stable in this position. Again, you're rotating at the hips. Your feet actually are not turning on the ground. They're still pointed straight ahead, okay? So once you have that, right, and let's say from the lower body and everything looks good, right? But now let's say that you're missing some extension here in your lower back or your hips, and so as a way to compensate, you're doing this with your upper body, right? And your sway back where your shoulders are behind your hips. Well, because you're missing that extension down here, your upper body's trying to compensate, and it's going to tilt your sternum and your whole rib cage up, as you can see here. So what you want to do is bring that rib cage down, all right? So your sternum, imagine if you're Iron Man, that light is shining straight ahead. It's not shining up in the sky like the bat signal, all right? Shining straight ahead. And something you can do to help with that, to kind of brace that position, is lightly contract your abdominals. Now, I'm not saying go around like the situation from Jersey Shore, just, you know, flexing your abs all the time. I'm talking about practice diaphragmatic breathing, which I covered in a past video post, which I'll link to down below. And that's enough to brace it. At a scale from 1 to 10, I'm talking about a 1 or a 2. So when you inhale, right, your diaphragm drops, you fill with air, and then you exhale, and just that little bit of tightness, that's enough to brace that rib cage down and brace your midsection. So it's not very tight, it's very, very, very slight, because if you contract too hard, you're actually going to shut down your diaphragm, and that sets off all kinds of other problems, okay? But it should be enough that if someone came by and gave you a little whack in the stomach, you're ready for it. Not if someone punched you, that's a whole different thing. They have to contract a lot harder, right? But just a little, you want to be about a 1 or 2 on a scale of 10 being the hardest contraction throughout the day, all right? Now, let's say you got that down. You got the footwear, proper footwear, your foot's on the ground, your knees and feet are pointing straight ahead, your hips underneath of you, your glutes are slightly or lightly squeezed, you're screwing your feet into the ground, okay, your rib cage is down, you're diaphragmatically breathing, so you're braced there. Basically, the only other things left to do is if your head is in a forward position, maybe you work at a computer like I do for long periods of time, is get that head up and back. So you don't have to squeeze your shoulder blades together, you don't have to stick your chest out. Simply imagine, right, here's the crown of your head, if you took a hair there and just pulled it up and back, okay? And what that's going to do is, if you notice, like if I go totally limp, right, if I just kind of like this, if I just pull my head up and back, notice my shoulders actually come back and they externally rotate. Versus here, if I just kind of go limp, you can see the front of my head, my hands, and all I'm doing is contracting the muscles in my upper back, not even my neck, just my upper back, because cervical movement starts in the upper thoracic, and I just pull that head up and back, and notice my shoulders come back. So you do not, contrary to what a lot of people may say, you do not have to walk around squeezing your shoulder blades together with your chest out. You know, this just kind of looks goofy, I think. So just pull that head up and back, and then relax your shoulders and neck. There's no need to be tense up here, all right? And those are the cues you want to go through throughout the day as you're standing to remind yourself. Now, obviously, this takes work, right? It takes a lot of mental focus and concentration, but the more you do it, the more that you kind of reprogram your central nervous system and you mylate the nerves to the muscles to hold your body this way, it's going to become easier and easier. Now, obviously, at some point, you're going to have to sit down or lie down or take a rest. Now, something you can do, and I don't actually think about something I have around here to do this, but let's say you're at one of the more progressive offices that you're at a standing desk, right? Well, tell you what, standing is a lot better than sitting, but it doesn't, you know, if you bring a poorly positioned body to a standing computer and you're like this, well, guess what? You're still going to have problems. Probably not as much as if you were sitting the whole time, but still, this is going to lead to pain. So what you can do in that situation is you can have a bar stool or a wall you can kind of lean against, right, a little bit, take a little bit of weight off your hips and your back. Or you can actually get something maybe a foot or two off the ground and just put your foot on it. Actually, I can kind of show you here if this was a bar, and just put a little bit of weight on the foot, almost kind of like the bar when you go to a bar, right? Because what that does is just putting that little bit of flexion in the knee and the hip, it unloads the weight and the tension here in the lower back, right? It takes you out of that kind of neutral or extended position into a little bit of flexion. So that's something you can do throughout the day. And one more thing that I invite you to try and do, because people go like, how should stand up straight feel? Well, here's the best way. We all have walls, right? So you want to use a wall as kind of a giant ruler, and you can stand up with your heels and your butt to the wall, your shoulders too ideally, and stand here for 5 to 10 minutes. Because what's going to happen is you're going to notice a lot of people, their head won't touch back at first. I mean, you may be able to force it, but when you relax, it's out here. And over the 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to feel the whole posterior chain of your muscles, your calves, your hamstrings, your glutes, your lower back, your mid back, then your upper back, up in your shoulders, neck, head, and it's going to just ratchet back in those 5 to 10 minutes, right? And as this happens, your body is going to learn how to settle in this position. And once it does, then take a step off the wall and try to maintain that position. So that's always kind of your ruler. If you kind of want to reset, okay, how should I be standing? There you go. And just to answer some common questions that I know when I get here, you know, it's okay if there's an arch in your lower back, right? You should be able to fit your hand back there. You don't want it, you know, like that where there's a giant arch, but it's okay that there's a little. There is a lordotic or inward curve designed in your lower back. Same thing in your cervical. You basically just want to make sure knees and feet are pointing straight ahead, heels, butt, shoulders, and eventually, let me not hit that picture, and eventually the back of your head. So again, you don't have to pull it back. I've had people whose head is here, and then over the 10 minutes they stand here, you start noticing this, and that's just that posterior chain of muscles on the whole back of their body waking up, and little bit by little bit adjusting vertebrae by vertebrae segmentally up the spine and pulling their head back into alignment. All right, so try it out. It's really cool. I love doing it. And so yeah, that's basically how you stand upright. All right. Anyways, thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, as always, you can call, email me, or better yet, leave them in the comment section below, because that's where all the learning happens afterwards, and we can share ideas amongst ourselves and learn from one another. All right. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you inside the next video. Until then, take care and keep moving.